Once upon a time, there was a girl who really wanted to make her husband look like the prince from Ever After. And, like, eventually she will make herself look like Danielle from Ever After. But first, she's gonna make a pretty flowy white shirt. While I know typically we do talk about Pride and Prejudice and Austen things, today I am talking about Ever After. Hello, my bookhos, and welcome to Book Hoarding by Bianca. I'm Bianca, and today I am going to talk to you about wamageddon. What is wamageddon? Wamageddon is my attempt to make my husband a costume from Ever After. But Bianca, this is not the costume from Ever After. I know, but you know what my philosophy is on making historical garments? Start with the underthings first, so that then you can make everything else. I just want to have a quick disclaimer that working on this Ever After costume does not mean that I support the fact that they use a slur in the film. I know that it was made at a different time, but like I still think that like we should know better and do better. We shouldn't use things that are considered slurs by communities. Much like I don't think Emma 2020 should have used the G slur. I don't think Ever After needed to. I do feel like we know right now, in this moment, not to use that. So let's not use that. I'm not going to be using the quote from that scene, and I'm not going to be using that slur in discussing this build. Why am I calling it wamageddon? When I was asking for advice on the Prince Henry leather costume that I do want to put over this, people were like, this looks like Whams, later Whams. I specifically asked in Opus LNA's Discord, and that is the advice I got, and so I'm going to go with wamageddon for this because I think it's funny. So with that in mind, let's get into today's project. I used the Simplicity 4059 Renaissance costume collection from Andrea Shui pattern to make this. I did not use the instructions, and I will explain in a minute. I do not see a ton of historical menswear videos or content out there, so I'm really hopeful that this will help people who are looking for that. That being said, I would like to start off with being like, hey, parts of this are not going to be historically accurate. That's just how we're doing it here. I am making a cosplay of a movie that is in itself not exactly period accurate to when it is set, and we all accept that it's fine because it's good storytelling. Good costume design is good storytelling, and we don't question that. So I did use this pattern to make the thing, and I also used a cotton that has a linen look for this that I got at the LA Fashion District. So if you go look at my LA Fashion District video, I have stuff on all the fabric I got and where I got it. I got like 10 yards of this, so I made this, and then I've made myself a camiscia, and then I have very little left because so much fabric goes into these things. Bianca, there's some black work on here. Yes, it's not true black work, but this is going to be a shirt that I'm 100% going to make my husband wear for Renaissance fairs, and so I put a little bit of embroidery on here. Is it accurate to Ever After and the kind of Italian Renaissance? I would say probs not super really. Like a lot of the embroidery I was looking at was not necessarily black work, and it came a little bit later than the movie itself is set in. But again, good costume design is good storytelling, and we don't care about the accuracy when it comes to that. Also, I'm a person on a budget. I can't make like 40 shirts for him right now, you know? So I'm gonna walk you through making this pattern and telling you exactly how I made it, because the directions I did not find very helpful. In these scant 2 pages of total instructions that are for this entire set of clothing, which includes the pants, this is what's dedicated to the shirt, just this little bit. In fact, this part is for the shirt, and these parts are for the different collars. I added the black work stuff because it just wanted me to add lace, like pre-made lace to this, and no. I want something that I'm going to be able to easily machine wash, and I feel like the lace also helps date it because, I mean, let's be real, if we get modern lace, it very much looks like modern lace. If you want period accurate lace, I just don't have time to make that right now, although I can make it. So I'm going to say you probably need at least 5 yards of whatever fabric you're going to use, and you're going to need a little bit of interfacing if you want to interface this, or starch. I starched this to keep it all nice. Okay, so with all these things in mind, let's start. So throwing out the instructions from the actual pattern because they didn't really make sense, I followed directions to a little yoke dress that I found. And basically you're going to start by connecting the front and back yoke pieces at the shoulder seam. And then you're going to have to deviate a little bit from the dress thing because there is a deep V in the front. But what I'm doing here is just pressing those seams open because they're basically going to be 2 pieces wrong sides together eventually, touching each other. So you need to press your seams now because you don't get a chance later. So then I have right sides together, and I'm going to be sewing the front area. That's going to be making up that open V area, if that makes sense. So I'll need to have that be a closed seam, right? The pattern, I believe, wants you to sew the inside of this first. I don't know. Like, the pattern is chaotic in that the first step is 4 steps all at once. So this is why I deviated. But I'd say just take your time and do this however you can. You can't yet stay stitch the whole neckline, but if you did want to stay stitch the neckline, and the reason you stay stitch, if you don't know, is because you don't want things to stretch, especially things on bias, and things around the neckline do tend to stretch because they're the topmost edge of a thing that carries a lot of weight. So if you would like to pop a stay stitch along each of these individual necklines, you can. Make sure to do it within the seam allowance so that it doesn't show on the outside. But otherwise, I'd say you're probably fine for these couple of fiddly steps because it's not like you're pulling pretty hard on this. That's just my 2 cents. So you see me pinning that front V area. So I did use the marks from the pattern itself around how far to sew down. And I just am basically reversing the instructions from the pattern because I don't think it made sense. So you can see here, I have sewn down to that little blue dot. And then I'm going to be flipping all of this inside out after I obviously iron everything and make it look pretty. So you see here, I have sewn and pressed everything and done it right side out. And now I'm going to be making those 2 little V's connect. I guess this is almost like pants, like the middle of pants. I don't know. But yeah, I'm just going to be connecting that right there in that V, sewing those pieces together. And then you will reinforce the bottom of that V anyway. So I think that all works out. You can see here, I think it looks pretty nice. You just need to press it again. And then you need to start the gathering process for the back pieces and the front pieces, which are pretty big. And you can just see here, I'm just doing a basic running stitch to just do a basic gather. And I know you can do it by machine. I don't really like doing it by machine, personally. I just prefer to kind of hand do it. It's my own personal thing. And you'll just gather this, and then you will space it out. And I like to do, again, the running stitch first, gather it to approximate where I need it, and then pin it down along the fabric that it's going to be sewn to. And just kind of use a pen or my fingers to adjust where the gathers are to make sure they look even and kind of feel right for what I'm working on. So you can see here, I actually used a pink thread for that because I do want to take it out. That's just, again, personal preference. You can use whatever you want if you want it to stay in there to match. But I am just sewing that down to one side of the yoke first. So it'd be like right sides to right sides. And then I'll be ironing this back. And then I will be ironing up the seam allowance on the other yoke piece and sewing that as a top stitch down. That is just how I'm doing this. You don't have to do that. Is it accurate to anything? No. I don't think the shirt is accurate to anything. So I think we can deviate how we need to. This is just what I did to make it work. Okay, so then you can see here, I ironed up the seam allowance on the back of the yoke, and I've now pinned it in place so that it for sure covers the ruffles, the gathers, and then I'm going to be top stitching that. And this is totally an up to you thing. Also, again, look at this fabric. I love that, like, this cotton has a linen look, but that also means it frays really, really badly. I assume it's because of the method used to do that, but I don't know. I like the look. It gives it a nice little kind of linen-y feel, and I'm cool with that. And then I've now finished the body of this shirt, so you can see me. It's very flowy, so I have to kind of redo this a couple times to try to get this on there, on the mannequin. But it's coming together. I really like it. It's very flowy. So you can see that there's my little top stitching. And that V, I do need to do a little bit of needle lace to reinforce it. But, you know, it's all a process. Anything really ever done. So then I have put in the sleeves. You just gather the top of the sleeves on this one. I did follow the pattern direction in terms of where it marked to start and end the gathers for that, because it just wasn't made to have gathers for the whole thing. As an FYI, if you are working on this. But you can just pin it in, gather the top, mark to the top mark, and pin that in. And I still need to enclose these seams, but that's a later problem. I don't know if I want to do flat felled or, I don't know, something else. And then you just sew those sleeves in. Because I'm working white on white, I know it's kind of hard to see everything, but this is a very, really, really, honestly, simple shirt. So, I'd say just start slow. The yoke part is probably the most complicated part of this whole thing, because everything's really flowy. It's super forgiving. So, take your time. You know, if you do want to have a finishing to seams, just think through the steps for that and how you want to make that work. But also take your time to make sure things don't get caught under things, because it's very flowy. You can see here as I'm moving the sleeve back and forth, I'm trying not to catch any of it. But I do actually, I know that I caught a little bit of the sleeve in itself, just a little bit of the upper sleeve into itself when I sewed this. You can't really tell on the outside. There's just like a little fold that got in there, but it's because you're using so much fabric, and if you are using a fabric like this that is made to, it's a little slipperier. Just be aware. Friendly interstitial here to say, hey, if you haven't joined my Patreon or Coffee, maybe you could leave me a little bit of a tip, because I need to replace my computer situation. Okay, enjoy the rest of the video. Okay, and then this is the shirt mostly put together. I need to do a couple more things, but this is like the real basic part of the shirt. You obviously need to hem it and do the edging on the sleeves, but this is my favorite part, actually. It's coming up, because when you do a fancy shirt, you gotta be fancy, right? So I here am faking black work. The shirt isn't really of the period of anything. Like, the yoke part is kind of funky, right? But I used my machine and I starched the fabric I was using before I started embroidering on it. But you can see here, I have built-in stitches that are very basic and honestly very reminiscent of black work, in my opinion. This is not true black work because I'm not counting stitches. I'm not hand embroidering this. I feel like you could probably, if you knew your machine really well, you could probably, you know, start and end your stitches at the same places, all that jazz. But I didn't do that. So here we are. I did want to get the black edging look, but I didn't want to buttonhole that whole thing for the little ruffle collar. So what I did was I did starch again. Like, I like when I starch slippery fabric so I can work this way. But I used my overlock stitch for this, and I went over it multiple times to get it to be kind of nice, thick black border. And you can see here all my pieces. So it's the little ruffle up top. That's the collar piece. And then I have 2 pieces for the sleeves. I think they look really nice, personally. I think from far away you're not going to know that this is not hand done. Personally. That's how I feel. And then you just sew the collar on. You sew the hems. I'm just showing you how to, like, I very basically folded that little hem down. Here is the delightful collar going in. I'm just so proud of it. It looks so good. And again, I hand gathered using a contrasting thread so I could pull that out later. I use the same collar method as I did for my plaid button up, which is, I don't even know if there's a name for it, but I did it. So that's what I have for you. And yeah, I just say be really take your time, especially with your embroidered pieces. Like, I am now sewing the sleeve embroidery to another piece of fabric. I'm going to turn it inside out so it's like a little sturdy cuff. So it's 2 pieces thick. So just if you think you need that extra backing for your embroidered pieces, make sure you get that done, essentially. I think it's, especially with thinner fabrics, it's really good. And then I'm cutting here 1-inch strips that I'm going to be making into the little ties, because I do want to have little ties on this. So what you do is you have straight of grain, and you only really do this with fabrics that you know you're comfortable and confident with tearing. But this was the cotton linen look that I had used for the whole shirt, and I just cut 1-inch strips. You can see here I'm just ripping them, and then what I'll do is I will iron these and make them into little ties, which is fairly easy in my opinion. So to do this, you just lay out your piece, you steam iron that thing down. It's going to, if you ripped something, especially since that's easy to fray, you're going to have a bunch of thread everywhere. Just a heads up. So there are a couple ways you can do cording. You can do it where you fold it in half, you sew up the side, and then you put a little dongle thing through there and you yank it inside out. I don't do that because I always have a hard time getting that to catch and then stay attached while I pull it through. So what I do is I just fold it in halfway and then fold it again. And then I sew down that edging. This is one way to easily do this. This is also how you would make bias tape, which is you pin your little piece of fabric onto your ironing board, and you make sure everything's folded in place before you start dragging it through there. This is a DIY bias tape method, a home bias tape method. So you go through the fabric on your ironing board cover first, and you make sure that your piece is folded and ironed to like what you want it to curve into. So mine's just, it's folded in on itself once, and then this is a little fiddly, but you use 2 long pins to do that. And see, you can just pull it through and it makes you the tape you need. Just pull it through. Sometimes you need to adjust just a little bit up top so it stays on track, and then you just iron it down. So you can see here I'm trying to guide it a little bit. And just pull it through and iron it down. Pull it through, iron it down. And then again I just fold it one more time and edge stitch that, and then I attach those as the little ties. And that was the last step on this, really, after attaching the collar and everything. Yeah. So I think this turned out really nice. I really like it. It looks very fancy. In terms of the pattern itself, the instructions, boo. No good. Throw them out. In terms of the pattern itself, in terms of the sizing and everything, it was fine for my partner. It had the same issues that most of the patterns do have, which is the neck isn't made to fit my husband's neck. And I haven't yet made him a block, so I could just make him his own patterns that fit him and his neck. But because it is flowy, it's very forgiving. So I guess that's nice, right? That's a plus. Okay, so that is the whole process. I actually really enjoyed making this. This was way simpler than a modern men's shirt, my god. And again, disclaimer that I am using menswear in the kind of historical context, or the context that it is used typically in my fashion classes, which is meant to be like traditionally menswear. I don't think that this is ever going to be limited to just men. I put this on myself and thought it was very flowy and wonderful, and maybe one day I will make my own, but that is for a different day. Today it is all about wamageddon Part 1. So thank you so much for joining me. Please check out my Patreon, my Coffee, to help fund some much needed computer upgrades that I need right now. I have a bunch of problems with my current computer situation, and it would be really great if I could edit without files going missing randomly and having to re-edit the whole video every day. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me, and don't forget to make it so. Hello, my bookhos, and welcome to Book Hoarding by Bianca. I'm Bianca, and I made these terrible pants.